welcome back to Making Waves. Thanks so much for being here today. Well, I'm assuming we all love cruising, right? That's why we are here. And there's so much to love about taking a cruise. But today I thought I would talk about some different aspects of cruising that maybe I think are overrated or possibly underrated. So stay tuned. Let's talk about it. So first up, let's talk about cost, the cost of taking a cruise. Now, I know that prices have kind of eked up over the last couple of years, but there are definitely still deals to be found. Definitely do your research, and if you're flexible on the cruise line or the dates of the sailing or even the destinations, you really can find some good deals. I'll link a video I did not too long ago up here where I tried to kind of compare apples to apples across the cruise lines, and there were a couple of pretty good deals that I found. I found some deals that are around that $150 per person per night for a cruise. Sometimes you can get some a little less, sometimes a little more. But really, if you think about what's included in that cost, you have your cabin, you have all the food you can possibly eat for the week, you've got lots of different activities. So I really do think when you compare it to land vacations, that it is a pretty great deal. So I'm going to say the cost of cruising is underrated. All right, next up, let's talk about the buffet. The buffet is something I think that's kind of synonymous with cruising. And let me just say as a reminder, these are just my opinions. Your opinion might be different, and I would love for you to let us know that down in the comments. So regarding the buffet, in my opinion, the buffet is overrated. Now, I do think there might be one exception to that. I do think the buffet is a great option for breakfast, especially on a sea day if you're looking to get out on the pool deck and grab a lounge chair before they're all gone. It can be a great quick option, and I think the food is generally pretty good. But for us, we really prefer to just go to the main dining room for breakfast. So in our regular daily lives, we both work a lot of hours, and we're also kind of homebodies, so we don't go out to eat that often. And so for us, when we're on a vacation, we love that experience of sitting down in the main dining room and having a leisurely breakfast, as well as the other meals of the day as well. So while I know lots of people love the buffet, and there are definitely some good reasons to love the buffet, for us, it's overrated. So speaking of food, let's talk about specialty dining. So I kind of think specialty dining is appropriately rated. I don't think it's underrated. I don't necessarily think it's overrated either. Generally speaking, we will eat at a specialty dining restaurant 1 or 2 times on our cruise. And we do think it really does enhance the overall experience of our cruise. But of course, specialty dining does come at an extra cost. And do you need to do that in order for you to have a wonderful vacation? Of course not. But it is nice to kind of try some different restaurants. So again, we've enjoyed them, but I think they're appropriately rated. So most cruises, except for maybe just some very short 2 or 3 day cruises, will typically have at least one gala or evening chic night. And so again, this is kind of our opinion. We think those nights are underrated. And this goes back to the fact that we really don't go out a lot during the course of the year outside of vacations. And so for us, it's a chance to get more dressed up than we typically would in our very casual lives. And it's kind of a romantic evening for us. So we think it's definitely an underrated experience. If that's not something that you enjoy, that's perfectly okay. There's lots of other casual dining options around the ship for you to enjoy. By the way, if this information is helpful or entertaining in any way, I hope you'll consider giving this video a like. It definitely helps our channel out a lot, and we really appreciate it. So when you think of a cruise, what's one of the first images that pops into your mind? For me, it's the pool deck, right? The Lido deck. And so let's talk about chilling, in the pool or by the pool. And obviously, I think I'm probably in the minority on this one. I think it's a little bit overrated. I love to swim. As a kid, I was at the YMCA pool near our neighborhood every weekend and every day in the summer. I took swim lessons from a very young child all the way up through life saving. I love the water. I love to swim. But on a cruise ship, the pools, are relatively small. I assume that's just purely a factor of how much weight the water is. It's in pools. If they had a really large pool, it might upset the balance of the ship. So on a cruise, the pools to me are a little bit like human soup. There's a lot of people you definitely can't really swim, and it kind of just skews me out a little bit, to be perfectly honest. Now, again, I know I might ruffle some feathers with that, and I'm probably in the minority. I do think if you are kind of laying out on the sun deck and you get warm, it's nice to be able to jump in the pool, cool off for a few minutes. But in general, we don't participate that much in that. Also, I'm very fair skinned. I mean, just a few minutes in the sun and I burn, sometimes even with sunscreen. So I really do try to kind of limit exposure in that way. So even though I like the idea of laying out on the sun deck, I typically don't do it, nor does my husband. When you book a cruise, you have your choice of cabin types. So I'd like to specifically talk about balcony cabins. So they're probably appropriately rated. For us, we think they're really underrated. We love being able to just sit on the balcony and listen to the ocean waves and see the gorgeous sunrises and sunsets. It's really such a big part of cruising for us. It's just that relaxation factor and really kind of getting away from the reality of our daily lives. Now, that being said, the very first cruise I ever took a couple of decades ago with my son, who I think was 9 or 10 at the time, was in an inside cabin. And I got the very best sleep of my life on that cruise. I think it was because it was so dark and our cabin was pretty quiet as well. And I really did love that. So I do think there's something for everything. For us, I would say balcony cabins are underrated. But of course, any cabin on a cruise is going to be pretty nice. Next up, let's talk about cruise line photography. So I've come to kind of feel like it's overrated. And that's really directly related to the fact that I think the quality has really gone down through the years. Speaking of that cruise I took, my very first one a couple of decades ago, I don't even think they had photo packages at that time. If they did, it's possible I purchased a small one. But I remember, when we would pass by a photographer, they would take your picture with different poses. They really would take a lot of time. And I feel like the quality of the pictures really showed that effort. Even on our cruise in 2019, we felt like they did a pretty good job. But on this last cruise, really it was like, okay, come up, stand on the line, snap, you're done. It's like one shot, one chance, and that was it. So for us, it's probably not worth purchasing a photo package. We think it's overrated. There's one exception to that. If you're taking a cruise for a special occasion, maybe you're getting married on the ship or doing a vow renewal, or maybe you have a family reunion and you're all going on a cruise together. I think in those instances, that makes sense to probably buy a photo package because you're going to want all those pictures to remember that wonderful cruise vacation with friends and family. All right, let's turn our attention to spa and salon services. So most cruise ships have really beautiful areas for their salon and their spas, and they offer various treatments like massages and facials. You can obviously get your hair done. I think there's even makeup application. And those things really can just enhance your cruise vacation. We're always saying we want to do a couples massage on a cruise. We've yet to do it. And the reason we've yet to do it is because it's kind of pricey. It's really pricier than what we could do, here locally. So that's what's holding us back. On our last cruise, we didn't partake of any salon or spa services, but on our cruise prior to that, we really wanted to do something. So I kind of looked at the spa menu and picked one of the very cheapest things, which was a foot and leg massage and scrub and moisturizing treatment. My husband and I did that together, and it was really fun, and it really was a great experience. And the spa technicians that we were working with were really nice, and we just kind of had fun laughing and joking. So in general, I think spa treatments are probably underrated in terms of the experience, but overrated in terms of the cost. If you're going on a cruise, you have no doubt taken a look at the cruise line excursions that are offered. And so let's talk about that. For us, we've done both. We've done the cruise line sponsored excursions and we've booked on our own through third party providers. And for us, those excursions that we've booked on our own, we really have enjoyed those more than the cruise line excursions we've taken. There's one exception. We did take a food and history walking tour in San Juan, Puerto Rico. That was through Celebrity, and that was a really good excursion. But any of the other ones that we've taken, it's not that they're bad, but we feel like they haven't been as great an experience as the ones we booked third party. And that's because typically the group sizes are a little bit smaller. We feel like you kind of get to know people in your group better. You can learn a little bit more and typically visit more spots. Of course, when you're booking on your own or through a third party vendor, you do want to check those times so that you can make sure you're back on the ship before the departure time. But in general, for us, cruise line excursions are overrated. All right, speaking of excursions, if you have taken multiple cruises, especially to perhaps the Caribbean or to Alaska, chances are you have visited a port city more than once. So let's talk about that. Do we think visiting a port city more than once is overrated or underrated? Well, for me, I think it's definitely underrated. Typically, a ship is in port for anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. And so you really can't see everything there is to see. In that time frame, you're really getting kind of a taste. I can give an example maybe of St. Thomas. So the first time I went to St. Thomas, I went to Magens Bay and had kind of a beach excursion, and that was really nice. Now, when we went back in 2019, we did something totally different. We actually didn't take an excursion at all. We just found our way to Paradise Point, where the gondolas up there for a completely different experience and view of the island. And then we kind of walked around and did some shopping. So we love that. I definitely think visiting the same city twice is underrated. I know some people complain about Nassau, but I still think even in maybe a city you didn't enjoy as much the first time, I do think there's something different you can do that second time to maybe get a different perspective and experience. So when you think about cruising, one of the other things you might think about is shows, right? Cruise ships typically have different types of shows and production shows especially. So I kind of think those are probably appropriately rated. I look back at my cruising experience and I do think that the production shows in particular have gotten better and better and better through the years. The costuming's gotten more elaborate and even just the talent just seems so much better. So maybe it's underrated in that perspective. The shows are certainly always well attended, so I think I would say appropriately rated. Along that same line, let's just talk about shipboard activities in general. To me, this is one of the most underrated things about a cruise, and that is there is an activity for everyone. If you enjoy games like trivia or the true or false or yes or no game or a newlywed game, or bingo or deal or no deal, right? There's a game for everyone. There's also classes that are offered. Some are free, some come with a cost, with things like origami or watercolor painting or mixology or wine tasting. And there's also learning opportunities like lectures. Now, you might think, oh, I don't want to go on vacation and go to a lecture. On our last cruise, there was an astronomer who gave a lecture about Stonehenge. And it was really, really good, fascinating. I learned a lot. It wasn't particularly well attended, which I thought was really a shame because it was so good. So I'm going to say in general, shipboard activities are definitely underrated. All right, I would love to know your thoughts on the topics that I reviewed today. What other aspects of cruising do you think are over or underrated? Definitely drop a note down in the comments. We really appreciate it. And if you haven't already subscribed to join the Mickey Way family, I invite you to do so. And until next time, happy cruising.